Hey, Dave.
Hey, hey,
How are you?
I'm doing great. I just love Mark Camilleri tickling those ivories there.
Me too. Me too. Well, today is the second day of spring. It is Sunday. It is March 21st, and
Live.
we're live.
Yes,
Hey, it's so nice to get that air, that fresh air.
I
It's
know.
rejuvenating.
It's what's coming up ahead of us, and we got a good taste of it today.
And we had a
We're-
good week because we both got our shots this week.
We did.
Yes.
One down, one to go.
One
Yeah.
down, one to go. And soon, hopefully, our audiences will have their shots.
100%.
And we'll talk about our audiences with our two amazing guests. And because
Absolutely.
yeah,
And before we talk to them, I wanted to say if the audience wants to ask questions, there's a link should be beside the screen. If not, there'll be a link to take you to where you can join us make a comment. We'll put it up on the screen.
and also during every conversation, to anybody who's out there watching on this beautiful Sunday afternoon, we hope you are, that you can always at any time during the broadcast follow the chyron at the bottom of the screen and donate to the Harold Green Jewish Theater Company, because we love donations, because it just gives us sustainability and keeps us doing these wonderful conversations and events, and as we do have a virtual world before we come back live. So Dave, let's we have an hour on thereabouts, so why don't we just get into it, and why don't you do
Absolutely. Yes.
First guest.
So they both have this, I'll let you introduce the gentleman, but they both have something in common. They both have theater, musical theater to a degree, but theater at their heart and core, and a passion. And they are where they should be because they love great theater, and it speaks to them. And we're thrilled in this country to have three strong Jewish theater companies. The one in Montreal, Siegel Center for the Performing Arts, has at its helm of artistic director and executive director Lisa Rubin, who was with us today, and the gentleman joining us.
Okay, and the gentleman joining us is well, he's a remarkable man, also a wonderful performer, and I don't know how long he's been at the helm of the Winnipeg Jewish Theater. I'll have to ask him. I don't know exact, but the great thing is it's a small world, because I went to high school with his father. So I mean, that's Shale Weinberg. So that's it's very cool. But the artistic managing director of the Winnipeg Jewish Theater, Ari Weinberg.
Welcome, both of you.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi, guys.
Hi. Thank you for joining us today.
Welcome.
Yes.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, thrilled.
So it's interesting. You have this similar background to Avery and I. We all started as performers, and I know you guys loved musical theater. Can you take us a bit through your journey of your performing aspect of your life as it led towards where you are?
Ladies first.
Lisa,
Ladies
yeah. Lisa,
first?
go, Lisa. Yeah.
Well, it starts with my parents. No, it's true. It starts with my parents and their love of the arts and their love of the theater. My dad had an 8-track of a chorus line in his Monte Carlo, and I just knew it completely by the time I was 8 years old. And then my mom took me to New York for the first time when I was 10. And they say those formative years and whatever shows you see kind of change your life. For many, they can go back to Les Mis. For me, it was 42nd Street, a chorus line, Starlight Express, which I saw on the trip, but I wouldn't say that was maybe, changed my life. And so it started with them, and then I knew that's really all I wanted to do. And I was just very lucky to have the support of my family who let me live that dream.
Did you play the lead in your high school musical?
I did. I played Babe Williams in The Pajama Game. And I was in 42nd Street in high school. And I was Cassie in a chorus line,
Wow.
all that stuff. But yeah, I mean, high school theater, and I think being a theater kid, and it's kind of what I always remind myself every time the going gets tough. It all comes back to those memories, to that dream of like reliving those experiences, those rushes, those collective moments with people on stage, and then of course with the audience as well.
Yeah. And Ari?
Yeah, I mean, I loved theater as a kid. My parents, for me, it was Phantom. My parents went to see Phantom of the Opera, and they were like, Ari will like this. And they bought the cast recording, the Canadian cast recording on cassette, and they brought it home and they played it for me. It started with The Wizard of Oz. Actually, it did start with The Wizard of Oz. No, the first live production that I ever saw was The Wizard of Oz at the Elgin Theater in like 1989, 1980. All I remember is Deanne de Gruyter was the Wicked Witch of the West, and I was obsessed. But then Phantom was like the big one. They saw it and they were like, he will like this. And then they took me. And then after Phantom, it was the Canadian cast recording of Joseph with Avery Saltzman. And I was like so obsessed with that. And so I went to Hebrew Day School. I went to United Synagogue Day School in grade 5. And then after grade 5, I went to an arts elementary school that just fostered my love of performing. And of course, in 1994, I was a villager in Aaliyah Poslin's production of Fiddler on the Roof. So performing has just always been in my blood. I went to an arts high school. I went to Unionville for their drama program, where I played, like, I did all the musicals. I did Once Upon a Mattress, and Me and My Girl, and Forum, and Into the Woods, and actually the most definitive theater performance of like my entire life, the one that I was like, I'm going to do this for a living, was when my Booby Cheryl took me to see Into the Woods at Canadian Stage with Avery Saltzman as the baker, which is a dream role of mine now. But it was watching Damien Atkins play Jack in that production that I was like, I want to do that. I'm going to do this. This is going to be my career.
Very cool. Very cool. Did you grow up in the Bathurst Manor, Ari?
No, Thornhill. I grew up just right behind Westmount, which is ironic because I didn't go there. I went to Unionville, but Bathurst and Centre is my.
And Lisa, were you always a Montreal girl, or did you?
I was always a Montrealer, but I like to say a New Yorker at heart. We were so close, so. We're really so close.
That's true.
So, you know, and then I went to Stage Door Manor, you know, this very fancy theater camp near New York.
Yeah.
So I don't know, just the drive to New York was always second nature. And again, very, very lucky to just have spent so much time there. And so yes, no, I have grown up in Montreal.
You know, it's so amazing. I mean, Dave and I were both actors, as you know, too. So even as we talk about this right now, my heart, because I miss it so much also, but my heart goes pit-a-pat because we all have those seminal moments when we're young kids and we're seeing the theater and here we are a few years later and you know.
You're so right, Lisa, with so far as that tremendous amount of passion and hope and future and what can you do with your life to connect to it. And speaking of Fiddler, because Fiddler is funny, played a role in a lot of our lives.
Yes.
Avery and I met, or I know we've met earlier, but it was in a production at high school. I know that was a seminal role for you to decide to go into it.
Yeah.
For you, Lisa, it was a play that really cemented your future with your husband. If you can share with us that story, which is a uniquely showbiz theater story.
It is, for sure. Well, my boyfriend and I at the time were in Fiddler on the Roof. I was playing Huddle and he was playing Pear Chick. And you know what's coming, Ari. You know what's coming.
I did not know this. Okay, that's
really? Oh
no, I didn't know.
Yeah, and so we had been together for 2 years, and one performance during the engagement scene. As you know, if you know Fiddler, you know it's kind of like a backhanded engagement because Huddle, of course, really gets Pear Chick to propose to her in a sneaky way. And at the moment, my now husband just took out a box and a ring, and I completely froze. And so the greatest part about this entire story is of course that it was completely in Yiddish. So it wasn't like I could ad lib. So essentially he pulled the ring out. I froze. We hugged, cried, massive cheering from the audience. and then we just went on with the show.
So they knew it was not part of the show. They knew this
No
was
one knew. Nobody knew except Bryna Wasserman, the director and artistic director at the time. The super title operator knew because she had prepared a slide that said, "This is happening for real." And my husband had invited a ton of family to that show. And I just thought it's because, I have a lot of family in Toronto. They were visiting from out of town. I had no clue. It was, and I don't know. I don't know if Matt has that clip, but like, if, it really happened.
He said he hasn't found the photo yet, so he's still looking.
Okay,
That's
okay.
that is
very
too cool.
That's
Well, I will. So we got married on March 27th, 2005, which is World Theater Day. But back in 2005, it hadn't been designated World Theater Day. So I have this habit of on my anniversary and on World Theater Day, resharing my engagement video. So for those interested in seeing this story and seeing me completely freak out and then continue on in Yiddish, you can visit my Facebook page on March 27th, and I'll share it with everybody.
That's so amazing.
that's a great story.
Absolutely.
Was being raised Jewish a big part of your upbringing? Did you have for both of you, Reformed? I mean, was it growing up? How was that, Lisa?
Well, yes, because I went through the formal Jewish education system.
Right.
I went to Solomon Schechter Academy. I went to Bialik High School. I spent a year in Israel it's in Sejep, which is, our equivalent to grade 12, 13. So yes, I mean, while my family wasn't religious, I had a Jewish education. And so a 100%, it was a massive part of my life. And it was actually when I worked for the Charlottetown Festival, I did it for 3 years in a row. And that was my first real separation, although in a lot of my theater practice and training growing up was with a lot of non-Jews. But living away from home for 3 years in a row in Charlottetown was my first time where I was the only Jew. Mm-hmm. And coming back to Montreal when that experience was over is why I joined the Yiddish theater. So none of where I am today would be around because I missed that community. It was like I needed to just do something with the Jewish community. And when I saw this opportunity to get involved with the Yiddish theater, I was like, this is what I need right now after having spent all that time being the only one.
It's so fascinating. Sometimes you don't know what you miss until it's gone, and then you really can appreciate it. And Ari, you did go to Jewish day school.
Yeah.
So was that also in your family life as well?
Yeah. I mean, so I grew up in a conservative Jewish household. I still keep kosher. It's like the only thing I do now. It's like, as I always say, whenever we're in rehearsal for a show and I'm talking about sort of Judaism, I'm like, it's like you can choose what you want to do. And I keep kosher because it means every time I eat in a day, it's the one thing every day that reminds me like multiple times throughout the day that I'm Jewish. So I keep kosher. Yeah, kosher household. And when ironically, my parents were very supportive and they were the ones who like pushed me to go to Baythorn, like for this arts program. In fact, so much so that when I was in grade 4, they took me to go and hear the orientation night, even though you couldn't audition until grade 5 because it started in grade 6. But then once I went, like for years, my mom would always go like, oh, we should have kept you in Hebrew day school. You'd have more Jewish friends, even though my 4 like best friends growing up were all Jewish women. But and also because of that, like because it was Thornhill, I had some Jewish friends. And so that always stuck with me. But Alex Saslov, who's been like my longest, oldest, dearest, closest, bestest friend. We met in grade 6 at Baythorn, then went to Unionville together, and then on to Sheridan together. And then we actually also did a show where we toured the States together. So wow. like it's 2 Jews together. So there has always been that. But yeah, Lisa, what you said in terms of like doing shows where you're the only Jew there, like it's a weird thing. And I've definitely experienced in situations where it's like, it's when the holidays come up. And like I've done shows on Yom Kippur, I've performed on every major holiday, and the times where it hasn't mattered as much to me has been when there's been another Jew in the show that I can at least acknowledge it with, as opposed to the times where it's like nobody really gets it when you're like, everyone in my family is having a Seder right now, and I'm here
I know.
kicking and twirling batons or something.
Oh yeah, I've done that. I've done that
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah. So it's interesting talking about Jewish theater, and it's because we all are each in Winnipeg and Montreal and Toronto. It's a different theater ecology. So, I mean, in Toronto, there's so many independent theaters that do so many specific mandates, whether it's for women, for independent Canadian, all different ethnic backgrounds. So for us, being a Jewish theater it helps the fabric of what we're doing. Although weren't sure to put Jewish in the title, but we're very happy we did. And I know, Lisa, you're the biggest English theater in Montreal. So you serve a couple of purposes, and you're also work out of a Jewish building. So, and Ari, I know, is Winnipeg Jewish Theater. We just wanted to bring up the conversation of what is Jewish theater to all of us. And although it might be different depending on the city you're from, what does it mean to you guys?
Yeah. At the Siegel Center, it's been our greatest blessing and at times our biggest curse, because you identify as a Jewish theater no matter how hard you try to do stories that aren't Jewish. And so it's I mean, like anything these days, we're talking about progress, we're talking about the things we do to be more inclusive. It takes time, but it's certainly taken the Siegel Center time for and consistency with programming that is relevant and universal to invite non-Jews and to make sure they feel that they are welcome and they are wanted, and this is for them as well. And at the same time, I've always maintained that we have to be fiercely proud of our Jewish identity and our Jewish roots. And, you know, we're on the Jewish campus. Our donors, I would probably 90% of our donors are Jewish. We're less than 4% government funded. So, and more and more the plays that are the most exciting are universal. So they can be culturally specific, yet everyone kind of sees themselves, and we get to say, you're different. Kim's Convenience is a great example. When we did that about a Korean family, the Jewish subscribers that I had were like, I recognize myself in them. And what a beautiful thing to be able to bring cultures together in that way. But it's a very interesting question, because a Jewish granting organization may say that Jewish theater is Fiddler on the Roof, is about a mezuzah, you know what I mean? It's about the Holocaust, where I'm working with, incredible Israeli talent, and the show has nothing to do with being Jewish. Or I'm working with a playwright who's a Jewish playwright, but the show is about the Me Too movement. So for me, Jewish theater is very broad. How's that for an answer?
Right. Okay. And Ari, I know you commented in the past about the juxtaposition sometimes of different cultures, Jewish and another culture, and what magic that brings.
Yeah, for sure. So for me, so what's interesting is in the theater ecology of Winnipeg. So first of all, there are 700,000 people who live in Winnipeg, and the Jewish population is about 15,000. And we've been around now for 33 years. WJT's been around for 33 years.
Wow.
Yeah, right. And it started because the community saw a need for it and wanted it. So they made it happen. And it started as a community theater for a few years and then transitioned to a professional theater company. And to answer from the beginning, so this is my 6th season here. I started in 2015 in the 2015-2016 season. I was 31 and anyway, and what is interesting is my idea of what Jewish theater is constantly shifting. But similar to what Lisa was just saying is in my 2nd season, we were doing this play called The Whipping Man that that I'd seen actually at Harold Green before I came here. And it was actually one of the plays that was in my final interview for the job that I was like, if you hire me, this will hit the deck in the next 3 years. Like, we have to do this play. And we did in my second season. And for those who are watching who maybe are not familiar, like The Whipping Man is set on the final 2 nights of the Civil War, which happened to coincide with the first 2 nights of Passover. And it takes place in a Jewish household because there were, Jews who owned slaves in the South. And there's a
picture of our production.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Oh my gosh, Sterling was so good. And so it sort of looks at the history sort of slavery throughout the Civil War in a Jewish household. And I had board members at first who were like, Jews didn't own slaves. And I was like, go look, open a history book. But one of our Jewish funders, when I applied, we didn't get funding from them to do that show. And when I met with them with my board president, one of the things that she said is she was like, well, MTC, the Royal Manitoba Theatre Centre, was doing My Name is Asher Lev that season in co-production with the Siegel Center. And they're like, well, they're doing My Name is Asher Lev and you're doing The Whipping Man. And, one of these, and I was like, I'm sorry, the second act of this play is a Seder. Like, you read the play? Like, I went, so do I just need to commission shows called, Rivka goes on a shopping trip and Booby with a bagel? Like, is that what we have to do? Like, I went, you don't know what these plays are. And you don't, The Whipping Man is one of the most Jewish plays you're ever going to see. And one of the most fascinating. So, and with The Whipping Man is when I realized, again, as a Toronto kid, like, I got to see shows at Obsidian and I got to see Fujian shows. And in Toronto, there is a theater that tells everyone's story. And that's not the case in Winnipeg. So for me, I felt it was important that we start to look at we're one of only 2 culturally specific theaters in Winnipeg. There's us and Cirque Molière, which is the oldest theater company in Canada, and it's a French theater. And so, as one of only 2 culturally specific theaters, I thought it was really important then that we live in a diverse city to start to look at trying to find at least one play every season that looks at where our culture intersects with another marginalized culture. So we ended up doing Tribes, which has very little to do, which,
So did we.
Conversation, yeah. And it's like Nina Rain is Jewish. So it's like, is the playwright Jewish? That can be a Jewish play. Is the content Jewish? Then it's definitely a Jewish play. Is the spirit of it Jewish? I haven't done that yet, but it's my dream to do a play with virtually no Jewish content. But yet you watch it and you go, that
Jewish values, Jewish spirit.
Exactly. And so to me, it's been in the last couple of years, I've said every decision we make, we look at Tikkun Olam and like, what is it in the ideology of Tikkun Olam that we are trying to move forward and how that pertains to the moment right now. And that's how we make our decisions.
Yeah, I know Dave mentioned earlier, and I had the great, good fortune of directing in Times They Are Changing last year at the Siegel Center, and seeing the audience, it's like our audience is transplanted there. They all look the same. I'm sure it's the same thing for you, Ari. So how do you talked about your boards and stuff like that, but how do you educate's not the right word, but how do you gain the trust of your audiences with these difficult pieces? And how do you answer to their requests or non-requests?
Well, I can say so Tribes drops a swear word that starts with the letter C 8 times in it. And every other
in the first 5 minutes.
Well, one is in the first
problem.
one is in the first, it's in the first 7 lines of the play. And one of the things with our production of Tribes is I was hell-bent determined that we were going to cast a local deaf actor in the central role. For those who don't know Tribes, it's about a family whose youngest son is deaf. And so I was super determined, and many people here were like, good luck. And I was like, I don't need 10 people to audition for it. I just need the one right person. And we found him, and his name is Jordan Sangalang. He was remarkable, and he's Filipino. And it was like, I called my board up and I found the local guy, and he's Filipino, and he's going to be in this play, and he's going to be a part of this Jewish family. And that's it. And my board president went, yeah, okay, great. Like, so one done. And then Stephanie Tsai, who's an amazing actress and also happens to be Filipino, Sylvia, who is Billy's girlfriend in the show, who is going deaf throughout the play. When I read it, I knew that Steph had to play the part. And I called her up and asked her. So that was the opening of our 30th anniversary season. And our image was these two Filipino people making a symbol of community. And it's like, come celebrate our 30th anniversary season. This is what you're getting. And on opening night, every artistic director who was there came up to me and went, great, you're going to get some letters because of the language in the show. And I got 0. We closed that season doing falsettos, and which I was in. And during March of the Falsettos and that, Marian Bernstein, our wonderful director, her vision for March of the Falsettos, which is this dream sequence in the show, was that all the men, we had these giant glow-in-the-dark penis swords that we were hitting each other with. We were like pointing that, like thrusting them at the audience. Like it was all these things. And again, every single artistic director who was there on opening came to me afterwards and was like, the show was great. You're going to get some letters about those swords. Not a single letter. So all I know is like the lesson for me in this has always been like, take the risk and do it. And also if people write, it's a great opportunity for dialogue, but what is important to me is that then the quality of the work is great. And by looking at other communities, because it is like a barrier for us is always going to be that Jewish piece. And we do our shows in the Asper Jewish Community Campus, in the Jewish community of the city. We're the only theater company that operates in the suburbs outside of the downtown core. But it's like we have to do these shows to get people to come and go see how universal it is. And so over the last 4 years, we've started to see our audiences diversify in terms of age and also just in terms of who is coming to see the shows.
I love that, Ari. It's so true. Everything you're saying, you have to take the risk and the work has to be good.
On that theme, when you plan a season, Lisa, because I think you're right, and we look at that too, doing some challenging, relevant work. But is it do you also look at a generalized menu of, have some music, some Canadian play, to some degree, some drama, comedy? How do you plan a season?
Also, they do full Yiddish plays too, which is
and a full Yiddish play is part. It's automatic. But how do you plan a season so far as the dynamic, the flow of the season?
Yeah, I mean, everything you're saying, I don't have a checklist, but it's there.
Yeah.
I think now more than ever, I'm looking for shows that are an escape, shows that comment on what's happening today and the fact that theater is going to be the one and artists are going to be the one to help make the change. So I'm looking to do, culturally specific plays that aren't Jewish. I'm looking also to shed light. I think there's a fear all the time from a handful of people that if you do a play that exposes the fact that, a Jew or a family are not the exemplary poster Jew, that it's a comment on the entire community. And I really understand that. I understand it because of anti-Semitism and how scary anti-Semitism is. But I also know that Jews have to look at each other, and when they're coming, and the experience, like Ari's experience, has taught me that when that's done, it makes for robust conversations, it makes for learning, it makes for stronger communities, and opens people's eyes to different perspectives.
We also find that too when we can balance it with a conversation afterwards, that at least there's some dialogue shared between the actors and directors and the audience, that always not softens the blow, but makes
some context.
Yeah, puts things in context. Exactly.
So yeah, I mean, it's definitely not easy because there is that checklist, right? I mean, particularly when it comes to gender equity, when it comes to, yes, you can't, I'm not going to do 5 tearjerkers. So yes, of course. But ultimately it's like, I look for the plays that I want to work on. I know everyone will want to work on. People will be excited about. I enjoyed reading the script. I couldn't put it down. I want to tell someone about it. All those reasons.
While we're there, I just want to say we have a clip I'd love to see, because when you came into the Siegel Center, I mean, Dora and Bryna Wasserman were so attached and so full from Yiddish theater that there's a clip I want to show of the producers in Yiddish that you did. So Matt, if you can sync that up, I think it's so wonderful to see.
Oh Max, ich will alles, was ich hab gesehen in den Movies.
Wenn wir Bestes aushaben, weil mit das machen, mit das machen, mit die Welt dann nehmen euch. Mit dein Chochma und kein Meure, mit zusammen fliehen euch. Mit das machen, nimm sich schneller mit euch. Dieser Jüngler, Shida, do be alles da und Blum.
Brilliant.
Too cool. What
Yeah.
a large cast.
So the Dora Wasserman Yiddish Theater is the legacy piece to the Siegel Center,
Right.
and it's community theater. So everyone on that stage was a volunteer. You know, I was just felling because Mikey Samra, who plays Leo Bloom, is now a doctor. He would schedule rehearsals in the last few years, like around his shifts, his residency shifts. And you know, it's such an incredible group. Like over the course of this whole pandemic, they've been doing kumsitzes and cast parties and just trying to keep the social and the community aspect going for everybody. And it's been some of our most successful online events because people just want to get together and want to be together.
That's so wonderful.
That was huge, though.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, Dave. Go ahead.
I was going to say, Ari, what are some of your more challenging shows that you mentioned? Some shows you didn't get any pushback. Have you ever done a show where it might be relevant, challenging, but and you did get pushback?
One, yeah, that made my blood pressure go through the roof every night. But I just want to qualify one thing. I think the thing too, just in terms of risk, when I'm talking about risk and challenge, is it actually isn't it. It's never actually about the content of the play itself. Like it's stuff that, like Lisa said, I watch and I go, this is thrilling and exciting. It is about perceived notions from the audience perspective.
Yes.
Like that it's language.
Yeah.
That it is that Jews are going to watch, you know, Jewish people are going to watch this play about slavery and then and protest that when I'm like, nope, it's like, here's the proof in the history. Like, and it's those pieces of putting up something in the lobby sometimes before the show, like having an exhibit beforehand and doing some of that educational and outreach piece ahead of time. But it's usually just language or something in terms of how the director has envisioned the piece, like the giant swords, like that those are, like that's what the risk is, but it's not the work itself. But the one for us was we did this play. It was the last play that we did before the pandemic hit. It was called Two Birds, One Stone, which looks at Israel and Palestine from the perspective of two women, one Natasha Greenblatt and Rima Jaber, who is Palestinian. And so we brought Rima in, and it was like, that was work. Every show we had a professional moderator there to navigate dialogue afterwards. And it ended up being a lovely thing. And some people came and some people didn't, but again, it's one of those things that I sort of said, you know, to my board, how can we not, we're a Jewish theater and this is the most pressing Jewish conversation. So we have to, and it was one of those things where it was in my 5th year as artistic director. And I went, if in 5 years of running this company, I'm not engaging in this conversation with our audience, then I don't think that this is a role I should have. Like, I think that's part of the leadership of a company like this, is you have to be willing to go, we're going to have some difficult conversations. You get joy too. And I think that goes back to season planning. Like for us, the season that the pandemic halted was supposed to be our first 4-show season in 12 years. We normally do 3 shows a season. So, but for me, it's like in every season thus far, if we're doing 3, at least 1 has to be written by a female playwright. At least 1 has to be a Canadian play. And so we were actually on a streak with the 4-show season that 4 shows, everyone was a new Canadian Jewish play. And it was, and then the season that was supposed to be that was supposed to open with Old Stock, and that would have been our 6th Canadian play in a row. Wow! Before moving back, so it's always. Oh, thanks, Miriam. See, there's my current. There's Miriam.
That's great.
But so I think it's so important, you know, to sort of just look and for me to be looking at things and going like, what is the conversation right now? What is the dialogue? And I mean, we were sadly gifted something that ended up being far more relevant than I ever thought it would be. But when we did Becoming Dr. Ruth, it opened on the night of the shooting of in the synagogue. Right. And so, you know, the campus, like I was on the phone that day with people at the Jewish campus going like, do we need to have heightened security? What is that? I found this beautiful quote by Dr. Ruth about perseverance. And this play that, you know, was just supposed to be something light and fun took on like
resonated
significant deeper meaning because of the world events. And I find that with almost every show that we do. It's like this, you know, whatever it is, there's usually something deeper to mine out of it once by the time it hits the stage.
When that shooting, I'm sorry, go ahead.
You tell them, David. It's okay.
Oh, when that shooting happened, we were in a production that Lisa directed, and we wanted to get, I think it was 2 years till we got it. It was the 3rd run of it, a brilliant play called Bad Jews. Which she did a marvelous job at.
With the C word in it also.
Yes, that's true.
Yes.
And at one point we were wondering, nobody ever commented on that.
Right.
Yeah.
But it was a brilliant production about what's happening with the younger, the younger demographic. And it resonated in a strong way too. And younger demographic is interesting. And there's the production. What a great cast. There was a really wonderful cast. We had great talkbacks.
That picture was before the play.
Yes, that was just before. But speaking of younger demographics, I know, at least for us, we're constantly striving. We do plays. I think you might have as well, Ari. Actually, we're populated with casts of younger people, like Bad Jews. And we have one coming up in the future. Is that a challenge for you guys, getting a younger audience, and what do you do to attract one?
Ari, you want to go first?
Sure. Well, I mean, okay. So what's interesting to me is when I started, I was 31, right? Like so for me, I think, I don't know for sure, but I think that was part of the allure of why the board hired me was that I was young, and I've never been hip, so I can't even claim to say young, but young I was to try and bring people in. And, you know, it's like, so what I can tell you is, again, and around that idea of risk or things, is that some of the greatest successes so far in my tenure has been Intimate Apparel, right? Which we did, which I think is the most beautiful play ever written. Tribes was huge. Every theater program in the city, because we were doing Tribes, their students had to come and see it. And again, to me, it's like, and this is my ongoing philosophy, is that I go like, Winnipeg has a very sophisticated theater going crowd. And it's like, I don't want people, I would love for people who are not Jewish to subscribe and see everything that we do. And we have some people who do, and they always find it very rewarding. But I want, like, I'm always looking for what is the one piece that, again, goes beyond sort of just Jewish, like that really, so that I want people to feel like they can, for one show a season, if you're a theater lover, that like there's one that you're going to come and see yourself or see something new and exciting. And that like, all I want then is for you to come once a year and go like, this is my show at the Jewish Theater. And eventually we'll turn you into a subscriber.
Has that attracted a younger audience?
Yeah, and so I mean, part of that is we offer student discounts, but and actually was supposed to be on our stage this season, and it got kiboshed by Corona. So it's, but again, it's, and falsettos was huge too for young people. Like I think it's, again, just looking at pieces, and I'm finding that the ones that are most relevant to now, you know, would I love, like for me, would I love to do Brighton Beach Memoirs? 100%. But I know that if we do Brighton Beach Memoirs, like I don't even know that Ari, like if I was in my 20s now, I don't think I would go and see it. Like that's the thing. So I'm trying to find things. And for us, our audience, our like core right now is like, I would say more like 45 to 65 as our core audience, which skews, I think, a little bit younger than I know a lot of theaters in general too. And part of that for me is also going, I'm picking shows that I want my parents to see, right? Like that I go like, my parents would enjoy this. My parents would find the dialogue. And again, kind of going, Boobies and Zadies, one show a season, there's going to be like, again, like something for you, but also they're the ones who come and see shows at our theater, and they don't mind when we drop the C word or when we have, you know, sexy things on stage. And I think part of that is I was very fortunate. My booby Fran, who's still alive, all four of my grandparents just got their COVID shots last week, and so did my parents in Toronto. So I'm very happy, you know.
Wow.
But my booby used to take me to see so much theater, right? And so she's almost 90, and so I used to see theater with her all the time. And it's like, so I kind of go, and I would take her to see stuff at Tarragon. In fact, like I took her to see Brokeback Mountain because she wanted to go, like, which is not a theater piece, obviously, but like, it didn't faze her. So there's also one of those things that it's like, when I'm reading scripts, it's like I'm going, would I enjoy this? Would my parents enjoy this? Would my booby enjoy this? And if it checks all those boxes, again, good theater just brings people out.
That's very true. Yeah.
And
Lisa?
Yeah, the same thing. I think, first of all, the Boobies and Zadies love the young stuff, the young shows. So there's no worries there. I mean, it's the programming. It's you kind of very, very similar to what Ari said. I mean, and I agree, like if they do come out once a year, given schedules, exams, cost, like I could give tickets away for free, and you know, someone still might not come if they're not interested in seeing the show.
Yeah.
Mythic, you know, was an incredible show, and we saw hundreds of young people come. So I mean, it depends on the show, but I also think we try to make it a social experience as well, which now I'm looking at new things like Clubhouse, or you know, that they'll go see a show and we'll meet on Clubhouse to talk about it maybe, but versus hanging out and having dinner in the theater, you know, until we can get back on our feet again. But you know, date nights and, you know, honeymoon in Israel, group outings, like adding a real social piece, because people want to be with their friends and see a show. So I think for younger, and I'm talking now 30s, 40s, you know, helping to build that the next generation of subscribers, it's giving them a really well-rounded experience.
Right. Oh, that's a good point.
How long have you been in the Seagull now, Lisa, as artistic director?
I think about 5 years as artistic director, but my first show as an actress was in 2000.
Wow.
So
I'd love
21 years.
If you guys can talk about maybe your transition, because I know Dave and my story about being actors and transitioning to this new passion, you know, and how did that happen? And that how did that resolve into where you are now? I mean, as an artistic director, Lisa, you start this time. How did this happen?
Yeah, I mean, gosh, my head's exploding, but I think, like, as supportive as my parents were and everyone around me, I guess I still kind of never fit in to the theater scene. Like, just to give you an example, like when I was living in Toronto, all my theater friends were so smart. They were like catering and waitressing or waitering on the side, making so much money per hour. but I wanted to work in a bookstore to make minimum wage. You know, it was like always that push pull between education and like making a living at this. And I don't have regrets, but I have regrets as an actor because I know what it takes to succeed in an actor. It's nonstop training. It's always staying, you know, fresh. It's always staying on top of your game. And, you know, the actors who, you know, are working are also taking classes at the same time. I mean, it's nonstop. And so, you know, I was always, I guess, the Jewish upbringing. So I had kids, you know, and like when you have kids, life changes. And so I guess the transition was really, you know, falling in love and wanting a family and being able to do both. And so I found myself really working, trying to consistently live the dream of being an actor, but working in the office and volunteering and doing whatever I could to be in the environment. But I couldn't necessarily, there was definitely not enough work, or I wasn't able to maintain the level that I needed to, unless I was on a contract. And then, oh my gosh, it was intense until it was over.
Right.
So I know it's a very long-winded transition, but it was a very organic one. And it was also a push-pull between, you know, the expectations, I guess.
Well, I mean, having seen you at the helm, being with you for only a couple of weeks last year, or 2 years, I can't remember when time. I don't even know where time is. That you, your attention to detail and to each department and how well it's run, and it's clean and it's succinct, and I know this you're doing, and it was really wonderful to see you that you've taken this company and you've given it a different whole color and shape that's intrinsically your own. So mazel tov on that, because I know what it takes, you know. And Ari, how was your transition? Because you were a successful actor, and
yeah. So, well, first of all, two things. One, I do have to just say, because I've had the experience of seeing multiple productions at your theaters, and continue to be inspired every time that I go to see them. And then I always come back and go, like, what do we change at WJT? What was that experience like? So thank you to all three of you for continuing to inspire me. And also, so for me, it happened in 1997 at the Stratford Festival. I was taken on a school trip to see a production of Man of La Mancha, and my booby was a chaperone. And it was my first time there, and I fell in love with the Stratford Festival. And I saw artistic director Richard Monette on the program, and didn't know what that was. And I asked my drama teacher, Bernadette Taylor-Dola, who had been an actor as well, what it was. And she explained the job to me. And I said to my grandmother on the way home from the trip, like, I want to be the artistic director of the Stratford Festival. Wow. And so then after that, every year for my birthday, she would take me to see a couple of shows at the festival. We'd go on a little trip. So for me, it was that I always sort of understood that there was this other side to, like, I just love theater so much. And part of that is my upbringing and my parents encouraging me. So because of my education, like, I am a huge Shakespeare nerd. I love new Canadian plays. I love musical theater. Like, I just love theater. And so for me, aside from acting and being lucky to have talent, apparently, I knew that I could make a career as an actor, but then also was like, what is a better dream than to run a theater and then like get to be immersed in it all the time. So I worked very steadily as an actor for 5 years after I graduated, and then I hit my first snag because I had been out of the city for so long. I wasn't able to audition for anything, and I didn't have a job coming down the pike, and it was not a pleasant experience. It was a bit of a toxic rehearsal space. And I sort of went, I don't enjoy doing this anymore. Like I sort of got a bit worn out. And so I went, I have other dreams. So I just started applying for arts administration jobs. And I got a whole bunch and shout out to Mitchell Marcus at the Musical Stage Company, who heard that I was taking a break and went, I want you here. And I started what was then acting upstage as a producer, and then got a Metcalf Foundation grant to be intern artistic director there for a season. And while I was doing that job, I ended up getting this job, and that was 2 years after I made the shift. But the other person,
Amazing. That is amazing.
But the other person who was instrumental, I do have to give credit to, was Stephen Shipper, who 10 years ago, I was in Winnipeg playing Benvolio in a production of Romeo and Juliet that was set in Israel. So the Capulets were Muslim and the Montagues were Jewish. We called ourselves the Montagues. And one day during rehearsal, I guess I changed I did something, and at break he came up and he went, you don't just want to be an actor. And I said, no, I want your job. And he said, well, let's go out for lunch and talk about how and that started a beautiful mentorship and a great relationship. And
it's funny. It takes a village to lift up a theater, but it takes a village to make an artistic director.
Totally.
And all the people that helped you. I know Bryna was instrumental in some capacity with you assisting her at the beginning. We're running out of time a bit, but we have some great visuals that we could show. What's coming up at each of your theaters? If you can share with us, Lisa, what's coming up at yours?
David, can I just make a quick coda on
Yes.
just one thing, and then I'll jump right into it, just because, it's just about being a mom. I don't want anybody watching this to think you can't do both, because whether there are sacrifices as a mom of my current job, whether you're an actor or an administrator, and more, especially even at the Siegel Center, I'm very aware, and as we continue to refine, what's always in the best interest of artists, we're looking at ways for parents, both moms and dads, to be able to have sane lives, to be both parents and both an artist. So while it was hard for me to realize that, my oldest is 13, I think we're moving in a direction where you should not compromise and give up a dream of being in this field if you also want to be a parent. So I just wanted to add that, whether you're
well said. Absolutely.
So what's coming up? Well, I don't want to make you jealous, but theaters in Quebec are allowed to open March 26th. Oh. This is an incredible thing. It's something that we've been prepared for since the fall when we were open. So we have everything in place, and we're doing the play Every Brilliant Thing, which, oh my God, again, not a Jewish play, but the perfect experience to come. That's Danny Brochu right there. We already went through in February a full production process, so we are ready to go.
Is there restrictions on attendance?
Yes, so the capacity is 200, and we'll have about 60. Yeah,
about 60. Okay.
Yeah, and then we're still doing lots of online programming.
Sure.
We're doing a radio play, Sibs, out of Tarragon Theater, and their podcast series with Diane Flax and Richard Greenblatt. This is I would say it's a very Jewish play. It's a radio play. It's going to be free starting on National Siblings Day. I bet you didn't even know there was a National Siblings Day, April 10th. And then right now, actually, like tonight and all day today, we've been streaming a reading of Dara Teitel's Behavior.
I love Dara.
Which is just, wow. I mean, I was in the theater yesterday watching this. You guys would I mean, so you have the actors standing in front of a camera delivering the play, but never actually ever looking at each other.
No,
I mean, this
cool.
is the temporary new normal to be able to deliver online content right now.
Yes.
And I'm very excited. On April 11th, in collaboration with Federation CJA, I'm interviewing the director of Valley of Tears, which is a show about the Yom Kippur War. Again, this isn't theater. This is
a virtual programming,
skill sets and talking to artists, which is another form of engagement.
Right.
But that's, I'm really excited because this show killed me. like, oh my gosh. So to be able to talk to the director and how it's been received and how it's, you know, unleashed a lot of emotions in Israel is very exciting.
An important Jewish story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Ari?
So yeah, no, theaters in Winnipeg are not opening anytime soon. So I'm super jealous, Lisa. But for us, so I mean, as I said at one point at the beginning of the year, I think it was like I was so dizzy from all the pivoting, like it was just constantly going in circles. And as a dancer, I was not spotting. So we aired our production. We were supposed to do a remount of our production of Becoming Dr. Ruth this year. So we filmed it and aired it for a week in February. And if you go onto our YouTube channel, you can see a 1-minute excerpt from that. And we did our So New, a festival of new Canadian Jewish plays, which we do biannually. We did digitally this year. But so right now we have a show on that actually, if you go onto our YouTube channel today, it's for free thanks to a grant from Safe at Home Manitoba. It's the Canadian premiere of a work called True Colors, which is a collection of stories by biracial and Jewish people of color from the Jewish Women's Theater in California that now goes by The Brave. And so there's 9 monologues written by Jewish people of color. And so we filmed them a few weeks ago, and then each week we release them. We released 3 of them. So this is week 2. So they're up until this evening. And then tomorrow there will be 3 new monologues that will run for a week on our YouTube channel for free. And then in May, we're planning to do, hopefully, we're going to do an outdoor production in a tent of the Canadian premiere of Ken Ludwig's Dear Jack, Dear Louise, which is, there it is. It's this like really beautiful story about Ken Ludwig's parents and how they met. So his father was fighting in Europe in World War II, and his mom was in New York aspiring to be a Broadway hoofer. And his grandparents met at a barbecue and started to talk and discovered that both of their children were single. And they were like, we should introduce them. So they started writing letters to each other. And then when they passed away, Ken Ludwig received the box of their letters and made this play to memorialize them. So it's a totally distant play. It's so perfect and so beautiful. So we're going to do that. And then because you're watching, I can say here, like we're going to, at the end of August, the first show of our next season, as we still figure out exactly what it's going to look like, is we're also going to do this play called Queen's Girl in the World about a young Black woman in the 60s in New York City who grows up in Queens and then gets accepted to a school in Manhattan and goes and has her first introduction to Jewish culture.
Wow.
Cool.
Wow,
So,
can I read that?
Yeah, I'll send you this. Yeah.
Sounds sweet. Us too.
Very
Ari,
exciting.
we think you're pretty hip.
Yeah. Ari, the monologues.
Yeah.
So you filmed them in Winnipeg?
Yeah, we filmed them here. So we have 9 BIPOC artists who are involved in this project.
And they're not necessarily Jews, but it was written by Jews of color.
None of our actors are Jewish, but all the people who are Jewish, and and what we did too, if you check them out, at the end of each one, we do a little documentary where we have the actor talk a little bit about their own personal identity, and their cultural experiences, and then also what they learned about Jewish identity and culture to look for that intersectionality.
It sounds fantastic. So before we go, we've got a few things to do. I just want to introduce our guy backstagers, our general manager, Matt Birnbaum. So Matt, you want to come say hi? Thank you for showing all the clips and
Hi.
Thank you.
I actually found one more.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Oh, that is too cool.
That
So
is
he
the
says at
best.
the end, Hastis dubis maskim. It means, so are we in agreement?
He goes right back to the play. That was hysterical.
That was great. I had to share that.
Muzzle
Thank
top.
you
That's
so much.
amazing.
Thank you all.
Thanks.
We're so
Guys, and
happy.
we like to always finish with the Harold Green Jewish Theater Company lightning round. So just some quick questions. Lisa, when and why did you learn Yiddish? Wow.
I learned Yiddish in Bialik High School, it's no longer taught there, but when I went to high school, it was taught. But I was a good student, but I really learned Yiddish in Yiddish theater.
Wow.
That's what I'll say.
So the first question, we'll start with Ari and go to what a great panel. Oh, that's nice.
Oh,
Thank
Adam,
you.
that's
Oh,
so
thanks,
That's Peter
Adam.
G. Thank
Oh
you.
my God. Okay.
Thank you, Adam. Okay, first
Wonderful
question.
theater in Washington.
Ari and then Lisa. On your bagel, cream cheese or cream cheese and lox?
Cream cheese and lox, and onion and tomato.
Okay.
I like cream cheese and cucumber.
Okay. I like that too. Okay. Here's a difficult one. Don't have to make it difficult. Favorite Jewish comedian? One of them.
Joan Rivers.
Okay.
Mel Brooks.
Love it.
Sarah
Your-
Silverman.
Sarah Silverman. Oh, I
Your
love
favorite play growing up?
Into the Woods and Elizabeth Rex by Timothy Finley.
Wow.
Rent.
Huh?
Rent. Okay.
Oh, very good.
Do you have a tattoo?
Nope.
No, but I'm thinking about getting one, but don't tell my mom. Mom, turn off your ears.
There you go. And our final question, if you had one word for humanity right now, as we head towards the end of COVID, what would that one word be?
Repair.
Mm,
Hopeful.
Nice.
perfect.
Nice. Well, thank you both for spending the hour with us on a Sunday afternoon, this beautiful day of spring. It really is enlightening it just makes you feel good to talk to you both. I mean, we all share this experience of running a theater company that tells a Jewish story, and it's been a blessing for, I think, all of us. Otherwise, we wouldn't be doing it.
Mhm.
It just makes us feel good, and
It fills our soul. And
fills
this
our soul.
last hour really helped replenish it even more.
yes.
So thank you both.
So thank you both, and only good health and happiness, and mazel tov on being an uncle, Ari, and
you.
yeah, great. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Take care.
guys.
Thanks
Bye.
for inspiring
Great
us.
seasons ahead for both of you. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.